When it comes to your retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everyone else has? Of course not. You're unique and have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated just like a number. This is your retirement. So it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you've found the Retire Your Way podcast with ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you won't find generic, run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave, Chase, and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement at a time using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hats and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now.
When it comes to retirement, do you want to have the same old plan everybody else has? Of course not. You're unique and have your own goals and dreams. Don't be treated just like a number. This is your retirement, so it's time to think differently. And you're in luck because you found the Retire Your Way podcast with ILG Financial. At ILG Financial, you won't find generic run-of-the-mill plans containing the same old cookie-cutter solutions. Dave Lopez and the ILG Financial team focus on building one retirement at a time, using their Think Differently philosophy. And that means your own comprehensive plan with customized solutions built to achieve just one goal, yours. So put on your Think Differently hat and get ready to take back control of your retirement today and for all the tomorrows to come. ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast was created just for you, and it's starting right now. My name is Ron Stutz. I am with Dave Lopez, and Dave, it is good to be back with you.
It is. It's good to be back with you. We go a couple weeks without talking, and I always look forward to this time you and I get to share ideas and laugh a little bit.
I know that we all got the opportunity to enjoy some time off, some downtime, if you will, during the holidays, and here we are, the beginning of another year, and let's hope 2023 is better than 2022 was in so many ways.
Yeah, I always like to say as of recording, don't we? Because one of the beautiful things about these podcasts as opposed to live radio is people listen to them, and we're blessed to see that, aren't we, Ron? Is that people come back and listen to our podcasts over and over again, sometimes, a year later. So if you're listening to this one and we hope you're getting something out of it and enjoying it, this one, as of the recording, right, Ron? As of the recording, we're ready to start 2023. And, I love to say this. We say it at work all the time. And because I run my own company, I can say it. Merry Christmas to all of you. So absolutely. Merry Christmas to you and a Happy New Year. If you're listening, if it's, in the middle of June in 2024, just pretend it's a year ago, right?
Well, I just wish everybody could be as nice to everybody all year round as they are during the holiday season. That's for sure.
Boy, isn't that true? So yeah. I'll think of that when I hit the horn on somebody tomorrow afternoon that you just reprimanded me.
Well, listen, let me put your phone number out there for folks who might want to get in touch with you and talk about their retirement. 540-720-5656. That is 540-720-5656 for ILG Financial. And today I thought we'd talk about something kind of interesting that a lot of people don't really spend a lot of time thinking about this, how to tap income from what may be your biggest asset, which is your home. And I have some questions here for you, Dave, about how all this works, and I think it might be helpful for everybody listening to this podcast.
Boy, it sure would. The impetus, Ron, to doing this particular one is when we build out our plans, and boy, you've heard this a million times, is we want to build a comprehensive plan that utilizes all of a client's assets. Mm-hmm. Well, what a lot of firms don't address, because it's just not their forte, is if the clients have anything in real estate, whether it's rental properties or vacation homes or even their homes. When we build our plans out for our clients, we're looking at everything they have. And the idea would be, think about this, what would be the ideal way to play out your retirement as far as the finances considered? Mm-hmm. I would suggest there's 3 ways it can go. One, you don't really plan, so you're not sure, so you don't spend all your money because you're afraid you're going to run out of money, and you end up passing away at a ripe old age with a whole bunch of money still in the bank and a huge to-do list or wish list or bucket list that you didn't ever accomplish and some regrets that you didn't do them, right?
Yep.
The second way that happens just as often because you don't plan is you spend too much money and then unforeseen things happen like long-term care costs or family emergencies or, you name it, or downturn in the market, and you run out of money before you run out of life, which is stressful, right?
Yeah, and nobody wants to outlive their money.
And nobody wants that. And then the only other way this could play out, whether you plan or not, would be, and this is the rarest of all options, right, is you pass away at a ripe old age with $20 in the bank and you did everything you wanted to do and lived your life, and you go to the Lord with this thought that I didn't work one day more than I needed to live the life I wanted to live. But now that's hard to do without knowing date of death, isn't it?
Exactly. And your last paycheck, your last check to the undertaker bounced. Yeah,
that's the winning scenario, right?
Right there.
Right? Bill me. Right. So when we build these plans out, we want to make sure the goal, even though you'll never hit it, is to get as close to that third option as possible. Right. Live the life we want to live to its fullest, do the things we want to do, or give the money away that we want to give away, whether it's to kids or charity or heirs, but have no regrets, but don't scrimp on your retirement because you don't have a plan. Now, part of that is we want to utilize all of our assets in retirement based on what your goals are. And of course, traditionally we talk about investing and income for life and downsides to the market risk. And oftentimes a lot of folks never consider the idea of, wait a minute, my home, of course I need it because I need it to live in, but can I utilize that as an asset just like I would a 401k or an IRA? So today what we'll talk about is how do we tap our home asset, right? How do we tap the money that's sitting in our house and use it for retirement? What are the different ways to do it? So what do you think of that? You want to jump right into it?
Well, that was actually my first question to you. You kind of read my mind. How can let's just say it's me. How can I utilize the equity in my home when I get to retirement, when I'm already retired or when I'm getting really close to retirement?
Okay, so let's take a scenario. There's you and your wife, Ron, and you've got your home, and let's say you may still be making payments on it, right? But over time, as you're paying down the mortgage, your equity in the house, right, which is the amount of, for those of you can be a fancy term, can't it? Whenever we talk about equity in your home, that's the price of your home minus what you owe. So if your home's $500,000 and you owe $200,000, then your equity, which is the amount of really money you have into the house, is $500,000 minus the debt of $200,000, which is $300,000 in equity.
Okay.
Right. So basically think of that as a cash account of $300,000. Okay. If you sold the house today and there were no other costs, you'd walk away with $300,000. Agreed?
Sounds good.
The challenge is you can't really get to that money, can you? You can't just write a check for $300,000. Or write a check for $30 against your $300,000, like if that money was sitting in the bank, can you?
Yep, a little bit more difficult.
A little more difficult.
Yeah. Can this money that you can't get to right away, can this be used to pay off credit cards or other kinds of loans?
Yeah, in fact, that's the beauty of this is we can access, if you know how to do it, we can access this equity for multiple things in retirement. So to your first question is, you bet. If you had, let's say you had credit card debt that was much higher, 11, 12, 13% credit card debt, right? You might want to tap the home, the equity in your house if you can pull that out at a lower interest rate and pay off that credit card debt. Because remember, when you're paying off debt, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want the lowest interest you can be paying on that debt. So if you've got interest through the credit card at 11% and you can borrow extra money out of your house at 5%, well, you're much better off borrowing out of the house at 5% and paying off the credit card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how do you do that? Well, one way is you can get what's called a home equity line of credit. And you'll hear people use the acronym HELOC. So if you ever hear someone say, hey, do you have a HELOC or a HELOC loan? That's a home equity. Yeah, it's a home equity line of credit, right? So basically it's kind of, we joked about that, but imagine you could write a check on your equity. Home equity line of credit is basically you get the approval from your bank that some of your $300,000 in equity, they're going to let you access in the form of a loan. And you can either pull it out lump sum Or you could literally write checks on it until it got up to the amount that was the maximum they'd loan to you. And of course, they charge interest just like anything else, just like a credit card, but often it's lower than a credit card, right? And you can pay back just the interest or, however you do it. But once it gets to a limit, there's just like a credit card has a limit. They have a limit to how much they'll loan out. Then the loans stop at that point.
So you can use this money to pay off loans, or what a lot of people do, of course, when it comes to home equity loans, is use it for home improvements. A lot of people, remodeling and refurbishing and maybe even adding on to their homes.
Boy, it's a great point, because remember all this is about quality of life in retirement, right? The whole goal of all of it is to live the life we want to live. And for many people, it's, hey, look, I love my house. I don't want to leave it. Why not make the house a better living environment, right? Yeah. If there's stuff you want to do, whether it's finishing the basement or putting in a pool or, whatever you want to do so that you enjoy your space, if that's where you want to be, as opposed to being a world traveler, you can use the money for that. Well, you don't have to pull money out of your 401k and pay taxes on it if you can pull money out of your house and not pay taxes, which is a big deal, right? We didn't talk about that yet. If you pull money out of your house as a loan, we can kind of avoid the taxes on it in most cases. Yeah. Right. So if you needed $50,000, if you could pull it out with a home equity line of credit to do a repair on the house, you pull $50,000 out, you get to spend $50 and you don't owe any taxes on the $50. If you pull $50,000 out of your 401k, you may owe 22% federal and 6 state, or 5.75 state in Virginia, right? You may owe 28 to 30%. So now your $50,000 turns to $35,000. I think I did my math right, right? So this idea of getting it out and getting it out tax efficiently, it's a great option. So home equity line of credit is one way. Now you have to make payments usually on the home equity line of credit. Right. Often it's interest only or a minimum payment, just kind of like a credit card. And if you don't, it gets, to a certain amount where it's too big. And then like maxing out your credit card, you have to pay at least the interest only so that the debt doesn't get above the amount that they've agreed to loan you.
By the way, if all of this sounds really complicated and you'd like to have someone provide a little guidance for you, if you want to do some of this stuff, get in touch with Dave Lopez. Again, the number at ILG Financial is 540-720-5656. Home equity loan certainly sounds really interesting. And Dave, how long does one typically have to draw on an equity line?
Usually they'll let you draw about 10 years on it, and then they'll give you about 20 years to repay it. Okay. Right. So there's some stipulations. It's different with every bank, of course, but that kind of gives you an idea. But so that's one of them, right? That has its drawbacks. One meaning you usually have to continually be paying on it, and you may not want to be increasing your bills by paying on a home equity line of credit. So there's a couple other ways to do it.
Well, I know that there's a cash out refinance that a lot of people do, but also reverse mortgages. Can you explain the differences between, and how it works between HELOC, cash out refinance, and maybe an RM, as we call it?
Yeah, sure. So think of a HELOC as an additional loan on your house. So remember our example with you and your wife, Ron, where your house is worth $500,000 and you owe, $200,000 on the house? Mm-hmm. If you got a HELOC, they might do a second loan. Right? That's all a HELOC is. And say, hey, of your $300,000 in equity, we will let you borrow maybe $100,000 or $150,000 of that out if you need it.
Right.
So, but that's a second loan on top. Your first loan is your $200,000 first mortgage. And then the second loan is the home equity line of credit. Okay. Another way to do that, if you don't want to do that, is you can refinance. And most folks listening if you've made it to retirement, most of the folks we deal with have had several homes, so they're very familiar with buying and selling and refinancing, right? Mm-hmm. You can refinance your house to get a lower interest rate, which has happened a lot over the last 10 years.
Sure.
Okay. Right now, you'll see it less and less because now interest rates, as of the recording of this, are rising. So usually don't refinance to go into a higher interest rate. Right? But one reason you may want to refinance, other than getting a lower interest rate, is to get more money out. Right? So what you might do is do a whole new loan. And let's go back to your example with you and your wife, Ron.
Okay.
Your new loan might say, hey, I'll get a new loan, not for the $200,000 that I owe on the house, but for $300,000. 200 of it will pay off the original loan. Mm-hmm. And then the other 100 can go into my pocket. It's what's called a cash out refinance. So you end up with $100,000 in your pocket, a new loan for $300,000, and the old loan is gone. Okay. So now you've got a $500,000 home, a $300,000 new mortgage, and $200,000 in equity.
Okay.
We used to have $300,000 in equity, but now we only have $2. Now, why is that? Because you got a check from the new finance company for $100,000 cash out.
Yeah, that makes
sense. On the refinance. Okay. And you can use the $100,000 on anything you want to do. Travel, medical costs, renovations, anything you want to do. Okay. So that's a cash out refinance. Now, why would someone do that? Sometimes you can get a better rate on a cash out refinance than you can on a HELOC.
Yeah.
Right. Often a HELOC is a variable rate mortgage and it's not guaranteed where you can lock in. And when you combine that with the rate on the entire initial $200,000, sometimes it's a better deal. It all comes down to numbers and seeing what's the best deal. But cash out refinance is the second way to get money out.
Okay.
And again, all of these examples, we can use the money for anything you need it for in retirement.
Well, now the third way to get money out, and this is something that is, good for some people and not good for others, reverse mortgages. Take a moment, if you would, and explain how that works.
Yeah, this one's very interesting. One, because it's very misunderstood. So the difference in the reverse mortgage, I'm going to give you the basics, and then we'll peel back the onion as much as we need to.
Okay.
Got it? So remember, the cash out refinance and the HELOC, we have to continue to make payments on that like a normal loan. Make sense?
All right. Yeah.
Now, people may not want to do that, right? Because they might say, look, if I borrow extra money out of the thing, now I've increased my budget because I've got a new bill and I don't want another bill. I want less bills, not more bills in retirement. Well, the reverse mortgage solves that issue. They say, well, what if we could do a second mortgage, kind of like the HELOC, right? Your first mortgage is on the house. Now we do a second mortgage. Or if your house is paid off, you can just do a reverse mortgage. It would end up being a first mortgage, right? Mm-hmm. But the reverse mortgage says, we're going to let you do it one of two ways, however you want to do it. You can either draw money out as you need it, kind of like we did with the HELOC, or we can just give you a lump sum, depending on how you want the money.
Yeah.
But here's the rub. You never have to make a payment and you never have to pay it back.
Yeah.
Now, how does that work? Well, all they're doing is, there's no trick to it. All they're doing is, instead of, when you pay back a payment, part of it's principal and part of it's interest. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the normally. Or if you do an interest only loan, you're just paying back the interest. So the original example, when you had a $200,000 mortgage, if you were making an interest only payment on your mortgage balance would stay at $200,000, right? You're just paying the interest every month, right?
Okay.
If you make a payment that's principal and interest, you're actually paying that $200,000 mortgage down a little bit each month. Right.
So you never have a payment on a reverse
You never have a payment, right? So when you don't have a payment, what happens? Well, you still owe interest on that, just like you do on any mortgage. Mm-hmm. So what happens is the balance of that, in this example, your $200,000 mortgage, the balance actually goes up every month because they're just adding the interest to the amount you owe.
Well, that makes sense.
But you don't have to pay it back. Now, here's what makes a reverse mortgage so appealing. The deal they make in the contract is, you never have to pay it back. Even if you're lucky enough to live long enough where the balance on that debt gets so big that it's as big as the value of the house or more than the value of the house, you never have to pay it back. Mm-hmm. Okay. As long as there's some stipulations to reverse mortgage, right? One, you have to stay living in the house.
Right.
Okay. So as long as you're in there. So somebody who said, look, I never want to leave this home. I love this as my home, but I want to use the money. This is a way to pull money out and not have to worry about paying it back or how you're going to pay it back. You can use it for extra monthly income just to cover the bills. Let's say you needed an extra $1,000 a month just to cover your monthly bills, where you could do a reverse mortgage and get an extra $500 or $1,000 a month as income to pay the bills, and you don't have to ever worry about paying it back.
Wow. Does a reverse mortgage have any kind of a prepay penalty?
It does not have a prepay penalty. So if for some reason you changed your mind and you wanted to settle up, you can settle up.
Okay.
Right. Now, what's the disadvantages? Right. That sounds too good to be true. So,
exactly.
right,
I've heard a lot of people say negative things about reverse mortgages, like you never want to get a reverse mortgage and all that kind of thing.
You have. And here's the takeaway to that, Ron.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut in on you, but
no, I'm just wondering because I've heard so much negativity surrounding these things, and I'm wondering if you could lay all that out for us.
sure. Here's where historically, in my opinion, the negativities come from. Like any tool, if it's sold wrong, you're going to have people who are unhappy with it. Mm-hmm. Right. And we've used this example before, but if I'm in the business of selling hammers, and my opinion is everybody needs a hammer, right? And you come to me and you need a shovel and I convince you to buy a hammer, you're going to tell everybody hammer's horrible, isn't it?
That's right. Exactly.
And the reality is a hammer's not good or bad. It's just a tool. So right tool for the right job. Mm-hmm. So usually when you have people complaining about a reverse mortgage, just like if you have somebody complaining about being in the stock market or being in a CD, their complaint is that it wasn't the right fit for what they were trying to accomplish. Okay. So for example, let's say you did a reverse mortgage and you think everything's okay, but ultimately your main goal was for your children to inherit your house and pass your home on to the next generation.
So that leads me to my next question here. What happens to this house? You had to stay in it. You had to, it still has to be your primary residence if you have a reverse mortgage. But what happens to the home when you pass away or you have to move to some kind of a facility?
Well, if you pass away, just like the home you're in now, Ron, it's your home. So you can pass it to your children, right?
Okay.
But just like the home you have now, when it passes to your children, if there's a debt on the home, a mortgage on the home, that mortgage has to be settled up. Mm-hmm. Right? And your heirs can either pay the mortgage off, refinance the mortgage, or sell the house to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
That's true for everybody. Agreed?
Yeah. And I would think that, a lot of these people, you've been wanting to pass this house down to your heirs and they want to keep it, so they better get busy and figure out a way to pay for it.
That's right. And that's if you want to keep it, which I would argue was a lot more prevalent 30 years ago than it is now.
Yeah, sure.
Right now, everybody's living everywhere all over the country. And, the children, if they're like my children, they have no interest in moving back to the town they grew up with and living in the house they grew up in. They've got their own lives and their own, towns now. So if it is a situation with your family that you want the house to stay in the family and part of the family may even want to stay there and live there and raise another generation in it, a reverse mortgage probably isn't for you because some of the disadvantages or trade-offs, how about that? Trade-offs to reverse mortgages. Yeah. It's usually, not always, but it's usually the interest they're charging you is higher on a reverse mortgage than if you just did a regular refinance.
Yeah.
Now, why is that? Well, because they're taking a chance here, right? They're taking a chance that you and your wife are going to live to 120, never leave that house, and they can't collect on the debt. Because here's the other rub. When it comes time to collect when you die, the most they can collect is the value of the house at the time when you die. Mm-hmm. Meaning they can't go after any other assets. So let's use your example again, that $500,000 house, right? And we do let's say you pay your mortgage off and now we did a refinance. And over time, you guys live so long and never make any payments that the refinance at the time you die, the house is worth $600,000.
Okay.
But the mortgage now has ballooned to $700,000.
Wow.
It's more than the price of the house. Well, the deal with the reverse mortgage is it doesn't matter. The most that the company can take is the value of the house. They can't go after your heirs for the extra $100,000. Mm-hmm. So it's a great deal if you outlive the money, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But of course, if you did that, there's nothing left for the kids regardless. But if you had sold the house to use the money, there'd be nothing left for the kids either.
That's
right?
True.
Or if you had just done a home equity line of credit and been pulling the money and continue to pull money out, they'd have either said you can't pull money out either longer. And if you still needed more money, you'd have had to sell the house on your own. So if you're not planning to pass that house on, it's not part of your legacy, right? Then it doesn't matter that the debt keeps going up. All that matters is you got not all, but some of your equity out and you never had to pay the money back.
Yeah. That all makes sense.
But if you want to keep the house in the family, then that's off the table. In fact, most of the other options we talked about today might be off the table because you don't want the debt to be so high that your heirs can't pay it and have to sell the house.
Wow. Well, all of this has been really helpful, and we spent a lot of time talking about reverse mortgages in particular, but so many other things to think about. And if you're getting near retirement, these are other things that you need to think about. And I would suggest you have a conversation with Dave Lopez. I'm going to tell you how to get in touch with Dave in just a moment here. But Dave, these conversations we have every month are really helpful. They're educational for me, and I think they're probably educational for a lot of other folks out there too. And I'm curious, what's coming next month? I know you have another exciting plan for us.
Yeah, big month next month. So keep your eyes on, if you're existing clients, on our newsletter. We'll let you know when it comes out. But there are big changes on the precipice of hitting us with respect to everything retirement. The Secure Act 2.0 is, as we record this, Ron, right about to be signed by the president. And assuming it's signed, which all indications are that it is, it's going to affect how you save for retirement. In your IRAs and your 401ks and your Roth 401ks and your how much you can save and all kinds of things, right? It's also going to affect tax consequences for 529 college savings plans and how they can be combined now in the future, possibly with Roths. Very big news. It's going to affect, again, Social Security, bumping back RMD date. So a lot to go over. And if you're in or near retirement, this is crucial that you tune into this and get the updates on how the retirement landscape is about to change with the Secure Act 2.0.
All of that is coming in our next podcast with Dave Lopez. And Dave, any final thoughts before we leave today's show?
Nope. Enjoy the day. We're never promised tomorrow, right? But plan for the future nonetheless.
Nothing is guaranteed, that's for sure. Hey, Dave, thank you so much for spending time today to explain all this. And I learned a lot. I feel as if a lot of other folks have too. So it's always fun to get together.
Yep, it is. Happy New Year to you, and we'll talk to you next month.
540-720-5656 is your number to call to get in touch with Dave Lopez, the founder of ILG Financial. 540-720-5656. Call that number. You can set a time to have a conversation with Dave about your situation, and we appreciate your listening to the show today. You are one step closer to learning what a customized retirement strategy can do for you. It's all about putting together a plan. Stay tuned for more of ILG Financial's Retire Your Way podcast coming your way next time. We appreciate your being with us today. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Dave Lopez. The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of Dave Lopez and do not necessarily represent the views of the Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory services offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and ILG Financial, LLC are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.